I'm Nintendo.
And I'm Sega.
This is Console Wars!
Come on, jump! Are you kidding me?
Man, I can't believe some of these negative comments from our videos.
What are you gonna learn? You can't let that negative stuff get to you.
But they're saying we're not cool.
What? Who said that? I'll kill him.
It's a lot of people. Look at this. These guys aren't cool. Those are some uncool guys. What is 4 thumbs and is not cool? These guys!
A bunch of strangers on the internet don't think we're cool. There's only one thing to do.
Accept it, be ourselves, and move on?
What? No. We need to figure out what they think is cool and do that.
Okay, let's figure out how to be cool.
Maybe I can help.
Whoa, is that Cool Spot?
What are you doing here?
Oh, you know, I go from town to town helping people in need be cool. I also make sure people have plenty of 7-Up.
We're good. We have plenty of Sprite.
Huh? What'd you say?
We have plenty of beer, I mean.
So how can we be cool?
What about filming in another location? I feel like Mom's basement's kinda lame.
I have an idea. What if we filmed in like a Japanese supersized fortress?
Did you just say Japanese suicide forest?
No, I said Japanese supersized fortress.
Oh, okay. Filming in a Japanese suicide forest would be dumb.
Really dumb. What kind of idiot would film there? Oh.
Okay then. Well, since we're stuck here, how's about at least playing some video games?
Alright, let's play Cool Spot.
Yeah, that's a pretty good game for Sega Genesis.
No, it's definitely better for the Super Nintendo.
That's it! Are we doing this?
I don't know, do you want to have a console wars? It is the name of the show, so yeah! Best Cool Spot!
Cool Spot is a 1993 action platformer developed and published by Virgin Games. The main character of the game is a 7-Up mascot. This isn't his first game and it wouldn't be his last. The Cool Spot games were released for Game Boy, Game Gear, Sega Master System, Amiga, and DOS.
But the versions we're looking at today were the ones released for Super Nintendo and Sega Genesis. These two games are almost identical, but there are some notable differences. So, which one's better? Let's find out.
At first glance, these games look identical.
These games have all the same looking levels. They also have all the same looking characters. Side by side, it can be difficult to tell these games apart.
But the Sega game does look better.
Check out this level on Sega. Look how the clouds scroll while you stand still. Doesn't do that in the Super Nintendo game. And the water on this level on Sega moves. Again, doesn't do that in the Super Nintendo game.
No way! My graphics are definitely better. Let's talk about something that actually matters. Color.
The Super Nintendo game is a lot more colorful. Look at these balloons. All these different colors. You can also see through them. And on Sega, just one color and you can't see through them. Boring. And it's not just objects, but enemies too. The worms in this level come in many different colors on Super Nintendo. And on Sega, again, just one color.
Enemies are more colorful on Super Nintendo. If you like bland, then just keep playing the Sega game.
Yeah, color's important, but it's not as important as screen resolution.
Once again, as is the case with most of these 16-bit identical games, the resolution on Super Nintendo is reduced. You get this super cropped version. You don't see the whole picture. You see everything on Sega.
Okay, my game is cropped, but it still looks better. Let's look at the levels.
Look at the Toy Store levels. Side by side, the Super Nintendo game looks sharper. The Super Nintendo game has colorful blocks with letters. On Sega, they're just blocks of wood. And on this Super Nintendo level, you have a cool vignette effect. How does that look on Sega? Nothing. What's the matter? Can't vignette Sega? And when you revisit levels later, they change on Super Nintendo. They don't change at all on Sega. And the bonus level definitely looks better on Super Nintendo. Just look at all that bubble action.
Pretty picture indeed. Which reminds me, you know what's cool? Tattoos. You boys got any ink?
Yeah, I got a tattoo of my favorite movie, Star Wars: A New Hope.
Nice.
Oh, that's nothing. I got a better tattoo. Empire Strikes Back.
Sweet. You both have Star Wars tats. I got one too, of my favorite.
The Phantom Menace.
Huh. Well, it's better than Attack of the Clones.
Oh, I got that one too.
You have tattoos of both movies.
Do you have any other Star Wars tattoos?
Nope, just those two. They're my favorites.
Huh. Well, back to the games. Mine has more detail.
The Super Nintendo game has more details, like the Walkman on this level. It doesn't exist on Sega. Also, when you collect a spot on Super Nintendo, you see a little spark. This is helpful to let you know you got spots behind objects. It doesn't do that at all on Sega.
There's no denying, my game just looks better overall.
With better use of color, better looking levels, and more detail, best graphics go to Super Nintendo.
Sega game has some excellent presentation.
Cool Spot has some fun with the Sega logo in the opening. It's not as cool on Super Nintendo. He also drags out the Virgin logo on Sega. Doesn't happen on Super Nintendo.
Logos? Let's compare the HUDs.
When you look at the HUD side by side, you'll notice the Super Nintendo's is a lot more colorful. Different colors for all the different numbers. A bit boring on the Sega HUD.
The HUD? Let's talk about the endings.
The ending on Sega has you surrounded by your buddies you saved. Then, the credits scroll up. On Super Nintendo, you get an ending telling you to try the hard mode. I hate endings that do this. You get the good ending by beating the game on hard and collecting all the letters in the bonus levels. It's all for this contest that doesn't even exist anymore. Unless somebody wants to try it out?
So you gotta try a little harder. Let's talk about something everyone sees. The openings.
Here's the opening on Sega. You see Cool Spot surfing. You might think it looks cool, until you see the Super Nintendo opening. Now that's surfing. Looks so much cooler than Sega's.
Well, dying is a lot cooler on Sega.
When you die in Sega, you see the icon with the number of lives fall off the HUD. Doesn't do that on Super Nintendo. Also, when you get a game over, you have a background. There's no background on Super Nintendo.
What about your typo?
The name of this level on Super Nintendo is Off the Wall. But on Genesis, it says Off the Wall. How lame is that? Even the Genesis instruction manual calls it Off the... in the wall. That can't be right. Let me check the Super Nintendo manual.
What the heck? Who let this happen?
I tell you, honey, I really knocked it out of the park with this one. That's right, there'll be a little bonus. And we'll finally be able to afford little Jenny that... Uh-oh, hold on. Boss is calling me. Call you back later. Hey, Jim, what's going on? Yeah, that was me. Off the wall, yeah. Into wall. Okay. Off the wall? No, that... Jim, I can explain, just... No, Jim, calm down. Jim, there's no reason to say that. No. I need this job, you can't. Jim! Sorry, little Jenny. Looks like I'll have to get you that new liver next year.
That got dark.
Yeah, it did.
Looks like we can't agree on presentation.
Agreed. Does this mean tie?
With minor differences,
That don't make either game stand out.
Presentation is a tie. We both have the exact same soundtrack.
Right, but mine is better.
Are you kidding me?
the music in both games was composed by music legend Tommy Tallarico, and his songs definitely work better on Sega. I mean, listen to these drums. It's not as good on Super Nintendo.
You like drums? How about these drums? And how are the drums on Genesis? Oh wait, there are no drums.
Overall, the music sounds better on Sega. Just listen to how much better these songs are.
That doesn't sound that much better than my game.
Fine. Let's talk about something that isn't subjective.
When you beat a level on Sega, you get a little victory music. And what does that sound like on Super Nintendo? Oh, that's right. There is no music on Super Nintendo. Why no victory music? It's the same song from this level. Why not use it? Also, when you get enough cool points to beat a level, or go to the bonus stage, you get some fanfare on Sega. You get nothing on Super Nintendo. No victory music or fanfare on the Super Nintendo.
Who needs victory music? Can you imagine if you had to suddenly hear victory music in real life? This just in, since everybody has victory music, everyone is happy all the time. We did it, humanity. We did it. Hey, there it is again. Pretty cool, I'm pretty happy. Yeah. I'm not so sure about that. Now let's compare something that matters. Sound effects.
The sound effects sound a lot more clear on Super Nintendo.
It might sound more clear, but your game's missing some sound effects.
Spot is more vocal on Sega. And other sound effects are missing on Super Nintendo as well, like these rubber duckies. Or these boats.
I have to admit, my game has better sound.
Since the Super Nintendo is missing victory music and sound effects, and the Sega Genesis game does have some better tracks, best sound goes to Sega Genesis.
The gameplay in these games is incredibly similar.
Oh, I concur.
Both games play like a typical platformer. One button to jump and one button to shoot bubbles. You can aim your shot in 8 different directions, and sometimes the shot spreads, so technically you're able to fire in 16 directions.
Object of the game is to find your buddies, fellow spots. Once you find them, you beat the level. You can't just find them though. You need to collect a certain number of cool points spread throughout the level. Every level has 100 cool points. The number needed to save other spots depends on the difficulty. The same applies to bonus levels, which is always a higher number.
There's no bosses, so you just need to collect the cool points, survive the enemies, and find your buddies.
A total of 11 levels and 6 different bonus stages. Overall, solid platformer.
But on closer inspection, my gameplay is better.
Let's talk about the cropping again. Not only does cropping on Super Nintendo make you view less of the level, it also makes it harder to play. You have to do a lot of platforming in this game. Cropping the screen makes it hard to see certain platforms. There's lots of leaps of faith going on in this game. The Sega game doesn't run into this problem with a nice view of the playing field. The camera moves a lot less, so it's a lot less disorienting.
The cropping's not that bad.
Yeah, cropping's great. I do it all the time when I take selfies on the toilet. Man, I am looking good today. Not again! Speaking of which, you guys got any rice?
Well, I have something that makes my gameplay better.
Like you said before, you can aim in 8 different directions. Only problem is, by aiming, you also move your character. This can be problematic if your enemy is close. The Super Nintendo game avoids this problem by letting you aim without moving. Simply hold down the R button, and you can aim freely without moving. It makes taking out enemies much easier, and you can only do this on Super Nintendo.
You can still get through the game pretty easily without a stop and aim, and you need it because your game is so much harder.
With enemies all over the levels, these games can be difficult. Luckily on Sega, they make it a little easier. Let's say you get halfway through the level and die. Every enemy you defeated before you died doesn't reappear. Enemies do not respawn in the Genesis game ever. The Super Nintendo game, however, respawns every enemy. No rest from the action ever. So if you play the Super Nintendo game, do yourself a favor and don't die.
So my game's a little harder. What's the matter? Can't handle it?
That respawning really affects how you play the game.
On the Genesis game, you can patiently and methodically take out every enemy you come across. It's okay if you slip up and die, because you still made all this progress. On Super Nintendo, there's really no point in taking out every enemy. You just want to get from checkpoint to checkpoint and hope you don't die. There's little more discouraging than taking out every enemy, only to have them respawn.
It also ruins exploration.
You need to explore these levels in order to find all the cool points. On Sega, you can take out every enemy without any worry. On Super Nintendo, you don't really want to explore. Respawning enemies makes you just want to stick to the path, but you can't stick to the path because you need cool points to get the good ending. But respawning enemies makes you not want to do that, so it's a vicious cycle.
And it makes it easier to get lost.
Levels aren't exactly linear. Some can be a bit confusing. If you die and start at a checkpoint, it can be confusing where to go. Luckily on Sega, it's easy to know where to go if you die. Just keep going until you see an enemy. No respawning enemies lets you know where you've been and where you haven't. You can't do that with the respawning enemies on Super Nintendo.
It's close, but gameplay on Sega definitely has the edge.
Even though you can't shoot without moving, for easier platforming with no cropping and no respawning enemies, best gameplay goes to Sega Genesis.
While both games are incredibly similar, one is better. And that game is cool spot for the Sega Genesis.
It might not have the colors or details of the Super Nintendo version, but it's still a sharp looking game. The presentation is pretty good too, with at least an ending on the normal difficulty. It has better sound with a better soundtrack, victory music, and more sound effects. And it has better gameplay, with a wider screen for easier platforming and no respawning enemies. The Super Nintendo game plays fine, but when compared to the Sega Genesis game, it just has too many issues. Mostly with the sound and gameplay. Best cool spot goes to Sega Genesis.
Hey, you guys know what else is cool? What? That wasn't me. That was the chair.
You know, I don't think this guy is that cool.
Yeah. Hey, wait a minute. Check out his chest.
This isn't the time to be checking him out.
Checking him out. I'm not checking him out. Look at his chest. Something weird is happening.
Oh yeah. What do you think that is?
Not sure, but I have an idea. Keep him talking. I'm just gonna go to the bathroom.
So, knock knock.
Who's there?
Banana.
Banana? Banana who?
Knock knock.
Who's there?
Banana.
Banana again? Seriously?
Knock knock.
Who's there?
Banana.
Banana who? Hey, what are you doing?
Me? I was gonna, yoink!
I can explain. It's a tattoo. I like men.
You're an M&M.
Why'd you lie to us?
I wanted to be your friend. I didn't think you wanted to be friends with a lame M&M. So I lied.
Well, that's just ridiculous.
Yeah, M&Ms are cool.
Really? You think so?
Most definitely.
We'll totally be friends.
You guys just made me so happy. You really are the best, you know? Wow. Friends. So, what do we do now?
Do what friends do.
And hang out.
Cool. Then let's hang out.
So,
Yeah, I feel pretty bad.
yeah, he probably shouldn't have told us that he was an M&M.
Let's never talk about this again.
Agreed. I really need to wash this chocolate off.
Chocolate?
Thanks for checking out our latest video. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And thanks to the Game Nerd for his donation of Cool Spot for Super Nintendo. And thanks to everyone who suggested Cool Spot. And keep those other suggestions coming. We will get to them. Also, check us out on Patreon, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram for more console wars goodness. Later.
So,
Yeah, I feel pretty bad.
I can't do this.